All right, welcome everybody. Once again, here we are on our weekly podcast, Transformations Weekly Podcast. And today we have our co-host, Joshua Camacho.
Good morning, everybody.
And our guest is Yvonne Stroman. So, as usual, we have an open discussion here about recovery. And so I'd like to start off by thanking everybody. I thank the Berks Rise Center for allowing us the space to, host these podcasts. Also, all the followers and the comments that we've been getting on our Facebooks and asking for help. Just continue to reach out if you need, what's the word?
Assistance.
Thank you, Josh. Sometimes I get stuck, but I appreciate that. That's why he's the co-host. But as always, we have topics that we'd like to talk about. And, now that we're here going through the holidays and people struggle through the holidays, and we have 3 topics we're going to talk about today. One of them is spirituality. And then we've been talking about stigma, but that's a huge part for people when they come into recovery, and it's a barrier for them. They're ashamed of going into places. They're ashamed to be around people. So that's why I keep talking about it, because it's important. So we're going to start off with Miss Yvonne, or see if Josh has anything to say.
We just want to continue to thank everybody that has been showing us all the massive amounts of support and love for the podcast. This is episode 3, and I'm very excited because I have been able to get to know this amazing woman throughout my journey at Camp Joy, as well as being involved with Lee. So you guys are really in for a treat today, because Yvonne has a lot of wisdom and a lot of strength to give to you guys today. So without further ado.
Yep. And again, just remember, go to the YouTube page. You go on the Lee Cruz, and then you'll see a symbol of a blue butterfly. Yep. Just make sure you go under there and you subscribe, like we said before. We're looking for 100 followers, and then we could also go live on YouTube. So just remember, go to YouTube, subscribe. And like Josh said, no further ado, here's Miss Yvonne. She's going to introduce herself and let you know who she is.
All right, well, good morning, everyone. My name is Yvonne Stroman. I am a person in long-term recovery. What that means for me is I haven't had a need to have a drink or drug since August 9th of 1990. And so I am so blessed to be 6 feet above ground, because my way was on a path of destruction. My way was about living my life as I saw fit. My way was about manipulating and lying and cheating and stealing and all those things which comes with the disease of addiction. And I can say that today because I know that on the other side is nothing but a life filled with goodness and happiness. And I am just so pleased and so delighted to be a person in long-term recovery. I couldn't say that in the first 2 years of my recovery. There was a lot of shame, there was a lot of guilt, there was a lot of if onlys, right? But what I learned is through this journey is that you have an opportunity. It's called Life Take 2. And you have an opportunity to get within yourself and get the willingness to be willing to take a look at who you are, right? And all of those deformities, quote unquote deformities, all those character defects, right? We get a chance to look at those and ask ourselves, what are we willing to do with them? Because knowledge is a powerful thing. And without knowledge, you can't move from point A to point B. And so you got to do the work, right? And so that doesn't come easy sometimes. But what I can tell you is that on the other side of that is an opportunity to be okay and be well within yourself. And when you could do that, you could be well outside of yourself with other people. They talk about accept the things that we cannot change and encourage to change things that we can. Along with that means accepting people as who they are. And when we can see people as who they are, we can love them anyway. We love ourselves in spite of some of our character defects, and it's okay. And I will tell you the most magnanimous thing about recovery is the joy of knowing people. And these gentlemen to the right and the left of me encourage me each and every day to be the best version of myself. And it is a connectedness when I'm talking about spirituality, which is one of my favorite topics, because that's really where spirituality begins, is to be able to connect with others and feel that synergy that is within us. We aren't meant to be on this earth by ourselves. I mean, if that were true, then God would just give Adam and that would have been it. But he saw in his infinite wisdom that man needed woman, and so thereby generations can be created that we can all be living in harmony and in loving one another, and just embracing the spirituality that lives within us. I think sometimes people see spirituality inside of a book or inside of a YouTube video or inside of a pastor. I'm not taking those things away, but if you don't know who you are in here, if you don't have that synergy and wisdom within you, there's no way that you can connect with Scripture. There's no way that you connect with other people through conversation. And so I'm just blessed beyond my wildest dreams. And I so thank you, Lee, for the hard work that you're doing. This is a man of wisdom, of grace, of honesty and integrity. This is a man who is a foot soldier in this community. He is awake more than he's asleep, and he's awake doing things. I'm like, every time he calls me, I'm like, what are you doing now? It's like, he's take a breath. But, you know, we always have to say, if we don't do it, the work don't get done.
That's right.
So sometimes we have to ask God for that extra oomph, right, Josh? And that extra can-do spirit, because we see things that need to be done. And we can have these conversations about what we need to do, but what we need to do is take that action.
That's right.
Right?
That's
And
right.
so here we are.
Yeah.
Here we are today.
Yeah.
And by the grace of God, we're able to talk about who we are, where we came from, and what it's like to take that next step into living. So, sorry about that.
Well, no, I thank you. I thank you for coming here and sharing those words. You always, every time you speak, you give me more fire inside of me. You really do. And, you know, I always call you sis, because I feel you're like my big sister. You're a mentor, you're a friend, and you're my sister. So I appreciate you. I appreciate you, all the work that you do, because I work hard, but I know you work a lot harder than I do. You're everywhere. But just continue that on. You did say something that really touches my heart, and that's accepting people the way they are. For me, you know, being in this community, we wear different hats, and everybody has their own rules and regulations of how and when we're gonna take people. I struggle with that part, because I am in the same boat that you are, accepting people where they are. And for me, I don't care if somebody calls me at 4 o'clock in the morning and tells me I just shot up, but after I come down, I need help. I'm willing to be that guy to go take them for help, you know. So it doesn't matter if you're homeless or not. You could be living in your apartment and still be struggling. So it doesn't matter, you know, people in substance abuse, they're from all walks of life, and they all need help. And when they say that they need help, somebody needs to help assist them.
Absolutely.
So that takes me right to that's touching to me, you know. So that takes me to when somebody gets to that point when they're using and they actually really want to stop, but they're still using and they're fighting the demons within, right? What can you say to somebody that's going through that currently right now that may be watching? How can you help that person make that decision to lift up that heavy hand and pick up that phone that feels like 1,000 pounds?
And that's a really good question. And I think it varies from individual to individual. Sometimes, and we all talk about this, we have to hit bottom. And I'm like thinking, you know, what does that mean? What does bottom mean? And so sometimes in the rooms we have to say, we hear that, and I'm like, you know, the bottom could be death.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So let's not wait. Let's not wait until that bottom arrives, because that could be a sentence that you can't come back from. Right? But in the meantime, in between time, if people are indicating that they need some help, it's kind of asking some gentle questions about What are you willing to do? Because what we tell people is that you need to do X, Y, and Z. And the reality is they're not ready for X, Y, and Z.
That's right.
But what they might be ready for is a cup of coffee. With link you up with X, this person who I know can give you some information. And so sometimes it has to be kind of like we get ready, right? I know for myself, it was about saving my job. So we have those external motivations. We got to save our job. We got to save our marriage. We got to save having our kids in our custody. But sometimes those things are getting ready. I believe, and so when people talk about they picked up again or they return to use again, that is not a time to like give them the fifth degree or preach to them. It's a time just to say, can you tell me a little bit about what happened?
That's right.
And say it in a meaningful, loving, non-judgmental way that can give that person an opportunity and space to just really talk about what's on their mind and their heart. And it might not be what you want to hear. It may be a little jumbled, but we don't have the right, I don't believe, to tell people, well, that's just an excuse. Because it's theirs.
Yeah,
and let them own that. Let them be with that, but honor their existence to say, you know what? I'm glad that you called me. I'm glad that you came to me. I'm glad that you want help. And let's talk about what some of those things might look like. Because I'm going to tell you, I don't know, but when y'all go into a grocery store, don't y'all love to have the selection?
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So why can't we afford that to our folks in terms of wanting help? There doesn't automatically have to be inpatient right away.
That's right.
Now, if someone is in withdrawal, we visibly see that, and we know that we're not MDs that can help them with that withdrawal, and perhaps there's an emergency room, absolutely, let's get you over here. And even there, it's an opportunity to, again, give them some information in a gentle, loving way. What they select to do with that is on their own, but we can say, what do you think about what's next, right? Because sometimes when individuals have that burning desire to say, now I'm ready,
Right.
then they're going to do the next right thing. You know what I mean? But people need to know that they're loved, that they're heard, and that they're appreciated. And
that
those
somebody
relationships
understands.
go a long way, and that somebody understands.
And somebody could start the conversation. I believe a lot of times should start off with giving them the reassurance and saying thank you for having the strength. Being proud of them for having the strength to say that they have a problem and they want to get help, right? And that's where the stigma comes from, and that's where a lot of it. A lot of people stand back and they fight these battles for so long by themselves because they just don't feel like anybody will understand. And then they're scared of those conversations that come up and say, hey, I've been struggling with this for such and such amount of time. And then they don't want that, that third degree conversation.
They don't want the judgment.
Right. They don't want somebody to say, well, it's just as easy. One thing that I could not stand was when I would hear somebody without the knowledge of what this disease can do to you just say, well, then just stop. I genuinely, it fires me up, because if it was that simple, we would do that, and you wouldn't have millions of people struggling from this disease. But I wholeheartedly agree with you that the empathy has to be there. You have to have that compassion to be able to understand that this is life or death. It's not about, I want wheat bread today and not white. This is a lot deeper than this, than the surface.
And I always, I'm huge on that. I meet people where they're at. I'm not, everybody I work with, I tell them, we're not directors, we're not POs, we're not police officers, we're not the judges, we're just people's mentors, that's it. So we're not here to direct people, tell them what they have to do and let them know everything they're doing wrong. Because when you do it that way, you're not building trust within that person. That person doesn't want to talk to you. Now he's closed off or she's closed off and they're not going to give you anything. If you come from a side of compassion, love, empathy, love being the highest, they haven't had that. Everybody has always backed away from them because of the actions that they take. So that's so important, being compassionate, being able just to listen to them without cutting them off, let them tell you everything that they need to tell you. Because eventually after they spill all that out, they're gonna trust you enough to say, okay, lead me to where you're gonna take me.
Absolutely. And those relationships last forever. You know, I have found that, you know, people will come up to me and say, I remember you when you were at Easy Does It, or I remember you when you were at Safe Burks. Now, I haven't been in domestic violence working in there for years, but they would come up to me and say, thank you. Thank you for hearing me. Thank you for just giving a kind smile. And so those things go a long, long way. People will always remember how you treat them. They will always remember how you treat them. And how you treat them is a difference between them continuing to contact you and asking you for help versus saying, you know what, I don't even, because what happens is they build up an image or a thought around the whole system then based on one negative interaction, and they stay away, and they stay away.
I've been in the field for probably 9 years now, and from the time I started, I still have people that contact me from way back then and be like, Lee, you were the best person to me when I was going through my struggle. Guess what? I'm going through my struggle again. Can you help me? And I'm like, sure, no problem. I'm glad you asked. But you always see the light on, right? So you don't bother them until they're ready. I always check in with them every once in a while and say, hey, how you doing? Then they don't answer you. But you know, right?
Right.
But as long as you consistently are there, they will come to you. And that's why this is my passion.
Yeah, my oldest sister is an evangelist missionary in my home church, and she was giving a word several months ago, but one of the things that she said, and it was so, I was like, yeah, that's it, is she was talking about being of service. And being of service isn't a 9 to 5 block, it is a 24/7. And her last words was, keep the light on. Now, for some people, that might think when you keep the light on your porch or whatever, but the light on is the light that resides in us. Keep the light on of love. Keep the light on of acceptance. Keep the light on of helping. Keep the light on of service. And when you do that, people see that. People see that light, and they are drawn to you. Just like butterflies are drawn to a fly. People are drawn to that light because they see it as hope. And isn't that at the end of the day what we all want? Is that hope that things will be okay, that things will get better. So I'm just saying, folks out there, if you are a person that is struggling with this insidious disease, don't give up on yourself. There is help available. There is unconditional love, unconditional judgment available. And for family members that desire to have their family to just stop, it's not that easy. This disease is a disease of the brain. Once you ingest these drugs, there's a switch that goes off in our brain that says, I want to do more of this because it feels good. And then sooner or later we begin to do things despite the consequences. So it's not to just stop. It's, you know, sometimes people can stop for one day, but they can't stay stopped without professional help. So we say to the loved ones, keep your light on in terms of your willingness to extend help and love to your family member, and know that there are services available, and give us a call. There are several. At the end, we'll give out some numbers. We hope that you tune in to Transformations, because there is daily information about access to help, hope, and healing.
Amen. You know, another thing, when you were speaking earlier, you were talking about going into the grocery store and we have a selection. That for some reason brought up different pathways in my head, and you know, Berks County is huge for 12-step, but lately it's been getting opened up to other pathways to recovery, and I'm a huge believer in everybody not being the same, everybody being unique. And you know, for people, there's a lot of people that are finding different pathways, and I'm big on that because I like to just sit back and figure out what it is that they like to do, and then help encourage them to find that and find the support system within that, whatever group it is that they go to. And I was going to ask you, how do you help encourage people to pick their pathway?
So I should have mentioned earlier that I work for the Council on Chemical Abuse, which is Berks County's single county authority, drug and alcohol resource. You're in the RISE Center, we're in the RISE Center, which is our addiction resource center. And so here we have several different mutual aid support that's here on Thursday evenings. There is Dharma Recovery that's here on Saturday afternoons. And then there's a Spanish recovery support group that's here Monday through Friday from 12 to 1:30 here at the RISE Center. And so we believe that each individual should be aware of and find what is most fitting for them. It's kind of like what things are you interested in? What is your desire in terms of your recovery? And so there's different modalities, just like there's different modalities of treatment, there's different modalities of recovery. And so we try to find out a little bit more about that individual, what their walk is, what are their interests. There is just a number of different ways of pathways to recovery that's in Berks County that people really should be aware of. I had a conversation several months ago with a couple gentlemen that are in recovery, and they have their own gym. And so we find and we know through research that fitness and yoga and meditation, those two are pathways to recovery, and they're genuine pathways to recovery. Recovery is about changing our perception, behavior, and trajectories of our lives for the betterment. And any way that you can find that to occur, please find that. There can be a combination even. I know some people that will go to 12-step help and then they go to smart recovery as well. And that's because they feel that that fulfills their foundation of what they're looking for in terms of bettering their way of life. And I think that's very important that individuals have access to this information, and that they be able, with the help of somebody, making those choices about what's going to fit my schedule, what's going to fit my quality of life to improve it.
Because one of the biggest things that I've done since getting into the field has become I'm a walking advocate for what we do, and having conversations with individuals that I may know have struggled, or just when they ask, like, hey Josh, what is it that you're doing? In an in-depth way, I give them the information of all of these programs, like the RISE Center and all of the stuff that we're speaking about. And a lot of times, the response is, "Wow, I had no idea."
Right.
Just for facility like Camp Joy, thinking I've heard so many times people, I had no idea that the places like that exist. And it's due to the fact of people not asking the questions, just not wanting to, obtain the knowledge. Like if you ask the right questions, like, hey, what is there? That right there alone will open up. You'll actually be so surprised. You might be a little overwhelmed with all of the options that you have. It's not just it's not just one avenue. You have so many ways to go, and it's an amazing thing as long as you ask the right questions.
And that's one of the main reasons why we did start this podcast, is because, excuse me, we believe that there is a lack of people getting this information. So we're trying to get it out there here in Berks County and beyond. I just got a phone call from somebody that needed help in Florida the other day, and they said they're on public assistance. I said, okay, so what is it? And they told me what it was. So I went on their website, I went on the internet, and I checked all the treatment centers that take that insurance. Gave the person the information, and it was irrelevant that it needed it for the person, but then she said, well, I'm going down there next week. If she says she's ready, I'm going to use this information. And that made my day. I was like, wow, I was able to help that person.
And to touch a little bit, that he was able to help somebody acquire assistance in Florida. I mean, if you guys have ever taken that drive, you know how it seems like it's a different world taking that drive. So the mileage didn't matter, the space, you're able to do things like that. And then if you're trying to get help in Berks County, it's all right here. All you have to do is reach out. But that's just huge. I just really want you guys to take a second to think about the fact that he was able to help get somebody in treatment in Pennsylvania who lived in Florida. That's huge.
And what I also love about that is one of the things we need to understand is that this is a think tank of knowledge right here, and I guarantee you, if we don't know, we know somebody else who knows.
Yeah.
And that's what I also love about this connectiveness, is that we channel and exchange information, and we know of other folks that would have that information if we didn't have it available.
Yeah.
I love what you talked about in Florida. We get calls from time to time about naloxone. Naloxone, we give out that for free here. And we had people, because of our website, they will contact us from Missouri, Kentucky, looking for naloxone. Now, we only give this to Berks County residents, of course, but like you said, you take that extra time, you go online and find out where their Department of Health or where their Drug and Alcohol Center is, and you give them that number. They're very, very thankful for that. And all I'm saying is, it's amazing what can happen when you take 5 minutes. 5 minutes of your time for good, right?
Absolutely.
And helping somebody else, it goes such a long, long way.
And can you do me one favor, Yvonne, can you elaborate for people that don't understand what naloxone is and what it's used for, so like that you can give them further information just in case they do need it or want it?
Yeah, you're on it, because I was going to ask you this.
Yeah, so naloxone is the antidote that reverses overdoses. So again, no judgment. If somebody is using, they are having an opioid use disorder, and they're finding that they're using, and a loved one finds them unconscious, all right, and they're blue in the face, maybe their lips are purple, you rub them on their chest and they're not responding, and if you suspect that it's it's an opioid or not, you can get naloxone here free at the Berks Rise Center. We're located at 702 North 8th Street. You give me a call, 610-750-7550, and you make an arrangement with me to come and pick up a Narcan kit. I can give you a quick 2-minute tutorial on how to use it. You have it for yourself, you have it for your family member, and it's a safe mechanism. Sometimes we know that people can't just stop, right? We already talked about that. But if you find a loved one in your home and they're unconscious, and chances are they've used an opiate, there's a way to reverse that overdose through naloxone. And we have them free and available for our Berks County residents.
Thank you for that information, Yvonne. Josh, you want to speak on something?
The naloxone part quick, I want to because if anybody is still out there actively using, by now you understand that it's not the same that it was out there before, as far as what you may think you're taking. The naloxone and that availability is so huge because unfortunately overdoses are at an extremely high rate due to, fentanyl being in everything. So I encourage, me being personally somebody who experienced an overdose off of fentanyl, not knowing that that's what I was consuming, I encourage anybody who may be still out there actively using opiates to keep this information near and dear to your heart, because it could save your life. Obviously, the ultimate goal is abstinence from the drugs altogether, but until that day comes, just keep this information in the back of your head, because it's very dangerous out there. I'm praying for everybody who is still out there, because I fully understand in the seat that I sit in how serious, it is out there. But it's just so important to have the knowledge of where to get naloxone, because it could be the difference between waking up tomorrow.
Thanks, Josh. And one thing I do want to say on that is that if you carry that with you, you're still giving that person that you're helping another day, another breath to at least try again. And that's just very important. A lot of people don't think about that and say, oh, I don't need to go get that.
Right.
But believe me, if you find a body, you're gonna wish you had it.
Yes.
And I just encourage you that you do get yourself a naloxone kit. All right, so that's enough on that point right there. But now I just want to ask Yvonne a few more questions about how she feels about going into the holidays. We talked about this last week and the week prior. We talked about stigma within the families, how people react, family members react to the person that was actively using, and how the person that was actively using acts around the people that he loves or she loves, knowing that they all love each other, but they don't know how to act around each other. What can you talk on that?
So there's a couple, when you're talking about the holidays, there's a couple things that come to mind for me that I think in the way of families. So if an individual is new in recovery, so say you have a loved one that was in inpatient treatment and they're now coming home, I think sometimes families get a little nervous as it relates to, is that individual going to be able to stay sober through the holidays? And so with hyper mode in terms of making sure that there is no alcohol in the home, making sure that people are saying the right things to the individual or nothing to the individual. Sometimes they want them to kind of feel it out for themselves. But, part of this is having those conversations with the individual as they're coming home. Treatment centers anymore are more family oriented, and so there's those family sessions and those family sessions about when the individual returns home, what happens, and so there's some type of preparation that's occurring for that loved one to come home. But just to let the individual know that they're loved, that they're wanted, that they're appreciated, that they're glad, they're safe, and that they're okay. It helps to have, if you can, access to some phone numbers, maybe linking them up with where there might be some other meetings in the community that the individual can go to. If the individual has access to other folks that they may know in recovery. These days, I think, you have to understand that there are over 33,000 people in Berks County that are in long-term recovery. And I dare say that whether you realize it or not, you probably know somebody who's in recovery.
Absolutely.
And so when you extend that conversation, you may find that if that individual is not in recovery, they may know somebody else who's in recovery. And so it's okay with asking them, can I give them your phone number? I've had a couple friends of mine will call me and say, I've met this young lady that, is really just trying to find her way. Is it okay if I give her your number? Absolutely. Absolutely. Because one of the things that people in recovery want to know is that they're okay. And when they hear that from other folks who have gone down that path, it really just lights fire into them to just say, I'm going to be all right. I think, oftentimes that word of stigma, even within ourselves, it starts with us first, because we have this disease that we're really not certain what that all means for us in early recovery. We just know that when I've used X, Y, and Z happen, there's consequences that happen. And so how do we deal with who we are in that early recovery is a little jumbled, not only up here, but inside in our belly, like, are we doing the right thing? That uneasiness really kind of helps us, and our mind talks to us and says, well, remember when you didn't feel that jumbled? What'd you do? Right. We use, right? Yeah. And so we have to understand that that's where the individual might be facing with, and just letting that individual know that if you want to talk to somebody, if you want to go to a meeting, help them arrange for that to occur. And for the person that's in long-term recovery, know that you are right where you're supposed to be. That jumbled mind, you have to give yourself some time. Time means this I must earn. Give yourself that time to heal. You've gone through 28 days of inpatient treatment. That's just the beginning. Yeah. They gave you some awareness, they gave you some education, and now the work comes outside of that treatment center. And give yourself that time. Allow yourself to be jumbled in the brain, because it's still a little bit wiry up there. Let it be. What we ask you to do is just reach out to people and ask for help. And it might be hard, it might be difficult, but let mom and dad or sister and brother or aunt and uncle know how you're feeling and where you're at. Sometimes, for me in early recovery, a journal was real helpful, because I wasn't really ready to talk all that much, right, about how I was feeling. Partly because I didn't even know myself, right? And then I didn't want nobody else to know, and I didn't want to be judged, right? So I went to that journal, though. I went to that journal and I wrote down some things, and I did some little God prayers, just to kind of help me, but just to kind of until I was able to get settled. And for me, I had to really follow direction. Yes. For me, initially it was about, nobody, I'm grown. You don't need to tell me what to do. I got this. I know what I'm doing. But really, did I? Every time you thought you knew, you got arrested, you sat some time in jail, you got fired from your job. So what I had to look at was what I thought I knew what I was doing. This didn't work out too well. So when I really finally thought, well, I can't, God can, I think I'll let him, and it came through people sharing and showing me the way, it was like, okay, this kind of makes sense. Okay. And as I gave myself permission to follow direction more and more, I was like, okay, all right. And I'm not saying each day is like, roses and flowers. It's not that. But what it told me that each day I continued to not use gave me another chance to get to know me a little bit better and get to like me a little bit better, right? And so as I began to do that, it became like, I love who I am today. I really like who I am today, and I don't need outside substances to secure me, right? And getting the appreciation and love from other people, and really extending that help and hope out there to other people, because now you got to be of service. You got to give away what you got, right? That it's all good. It really is all good. And so I just want to encourage families and those folks that are struggling to one day at a time, and sometimes it comes down to 1 hour at a time, that just let yourself know that you're going to get through this, and that you don't necessarily have to pick up a drink or drug.
Absolutely. The hard days for me were the days that, like you said, I learned the most. The hard days that you have a lot in early recovery. I'm not one to sugarcoat. It's not, I don't, as you know, I'm not into selling dreams, and early on in recovery, you'll have more rough days than good days, but it's worth it once you put the time in, because every bad day that I was able to get through, that I didn't have to make that phone call, or I didn't run to the bar, or I didn't take the easy way out, the next morning I always felt just a little bit better, just because maybe the situation didn't clarify itself all the way, maybe it didn't become what I still wanted it to be, but I was able to look in the mirror in the morning and say, but I didn't go out. And then I was able to do that, because I remember those days of not being able to get 2 days in a row. I remember the days not being able to get, go a few hours without having to use. So then to be able to put a week together, 2 weeks together, 3, and then you start to see it add up. And then for me, I'm very proud of my days. I hold my days very near and dear to my heart, because I never thought that I would be able to get them. And I know that, being in early recovery, thinking of people like you, Yvonne, that have, 30 years, right? You're like, for people that are just coming off of the streets, you're like a unicorn, so to speak. It's like, there's no way. And then once you get into recovery and you start meeting these amazing people and you learn from them, you start to maneuver like them, take advice. That was the biggest thing too, not to get all over the place that she touched on, but following direction, because she's not the only one, I'm not the only one, Lee's not the only one. We've all tried to do it our own way and it never works out. So follow direction, take advice, but then you start to see that she's not a unicorn. There's so many of her, because it's so many people that have decided to take the help, take the advice, take the guidance, and there's so many of them that have been able to be blessed enough to obtain long-term sobriety because of the things that she's suggesting, and it really, really works. It might sound like a long shot right now if anybody's sitting there and is still actively using or is just separated by a day or two, but I promise you it's possible, and I promise you you'll feel so much better once you start putting in the work.
And you want to say something? And for the families that keep reaching out to me on Messenger, I know it's a struggle. It's probably, you're thinking it's easy for me to say it. Just keep getting educated on it. The people I'm talking to, just keep getting educated on it. Continue to be supportive. Just because your spouse or your family members are having problems with accepting the fact that this is the problem, just continue getting educated and try and get your child, your brother, your sister, your husband the help that they need. Because that's the most important part. You do want to continue to try and lead that horse to the water. And continue talking to me, because I know it'll happen. The change will come. You just got to continue to keep talking about it. It's
And
just,
even
it's
if-
important.
Yeah, and even if, sometimes I talk to families whereby their loved one has gone to treatment and their loved one had been in recovery for 3 or 4 months, and then something happened whereby they returned to use. And that might happen, not once, but twice or maybe 3 times. My message to you is that don't give up. Sometimes there are setbacks. There is this disease called substance use disorder, right? Or addiction. This being a disease, it's no different than somebody living with diabetes,
Right.
no different than somebody living with cancer. They too have setbacks. And you think about the attitude that we share with them. If they are not, and if they're no longer in remission and they have a reoccurrence, we give them more support, right? We're saying that we're so sorry that the cancer's come back. We're so sorry, let's try this, let's try another pathway, let's try something else, we're so sorry. If we can have the same love, care and concern that we do for somebody who has returned to use from substances, imagine the support, right? We're so sorry that that happened for you, we're glad that you're back.
Right.
And now let's talk about and let's take a look at something else. And so if we can think about that in terms of it's a disease of the brain, that there can be reoccurrences that may happen, and that we just mean that we need to love them back even more. We need to support them even more. And we need to let them know that we still care and love about you. And let's take a look at some other approaches.
That's right.
And because each day is a new beginning. And I really appreciate you, Josh, talking about the length of years. I too was there. I remember in early recovery in the early 90s, and people would be at meetings talking about 15, 20, 25 years. And I'm thinking, what? Who are you?
Right.
Where did you come from? What? And so one day at a time, you find that when you do the right thing, when you first commit to not using a substance just for the day, right? Those days become months, those months become years, those years become decades. And I will just tell you that when I talk about, and when I say God is doing for me what I couldn't do for myself, I'm telling you, I would have never, if you'd have told me 30 years ago that I would have 32 years of long-term recovery, I'd have been like, looking like, who are you talking about?
Right.
Who are you talking about? Right? Because the honesty is, and I want to tell you that sometimes we don't get sober right away for ourselves.
Absolutely.
We do it because we don't want to go to jail. The probation officer threatened to, put us back in behind bars.
The wife's gonna leave.
The wife's gonna leave. The job's gonna fire you. So those external motivations are enough.
Yep.
Those external motivations are enough for you to begin to do the next right thing. It's enough. And I dare ask you to stay long enough that you do it because you want to.
Yes.
And that's what we've made that decision to do, right? And it is a loving, beautiful journey that I wouldn't trade for anything today.
I am so honored and so blessed to sit here at this table this morning and say that I am sober here today because I want to be. Like, it feels so good to know and to say, me and my wife had this conversation not that long ago, and I was finally able to look at her and tell her the truth and mean it and say, I'm sober because I want to be. I'm not doing it for anybody else. Me getting into the field, I had a job before. It wasn't something that, like, my back was against the wall. I left that job to get into the field because this is what I wanted to do. And what Yvonne is talking about is that sense of happiness I can't explain to anybody who's watching, anybody who's gonna watch. It just feels so good. Like, I wake up every day and I don't get complacent. I'm not living in a false reality that, I can say that N-word, that never, that, but I don't do that. But I'm very, very blessed, and I'm so grateful to be in the position that I am, because in my experience, I could have never fathomed my life being what it is today, meeting the amazing people that I've met today, and being able to not only talk to them and not only have, you know, a direct line of communication, but to work shoulder to shoulder with such amazing people is unbelievable. And to know anybody who knows me and where I come from, this is huge. You know, this is pretty big, because who would have ever thought, you know, that I could do it? But if I can, you can. I promise you that.
Mm-hmm. And to piggyback on what you guys were talking about, for me, when in my early recovery, I remember going into the rooms and saying, there is no way that I gotta live the rest of my life and not drink a beer or sniff some cocaine. Like, how's that gonna happen? Like, but that was only the people that I knew, the people that I surrounded myself with. And until I accepted the fact that I can't ever drink again, and that I can't ever use again, and my life will change and be normal, it wasn't until then that life didn't start changing, right? It started changing then. So it's a huge part of acceptance, right? Accepting the fact that you just can't do it. Yep. And then, so I always tell people in early recovery, you know, we always count out sober time. Mm-hmm. But for me, I say that I started my recovery like after the 4th year, because the first 4 years I just started building my foundation. I started learning what I had to do. So I wasn't in recovery. I was just taking advice. Man. I was taking suggestions. I was being willing, open-minded. And recovery started after that for me. So I appreciate those 4 years, because it made me who I am today. But I totally understand that was my building, right? I was building myself to who I am today. And my recovery started after 4 years, because even in those 4 years, I was still manipulative. I still had issues in my head that I had to deal with. I was on mental health medication my first 2 years of recovery. Today, I'm not on mental health medication, and that's all due to the power of God, right? That changed that took that away from me and gave me the strength to work on myself, so all that can be released from me. So I feel like I'm preaching right now. Jesus, it's like fire right now. But this conversation has been awesome today, and I am honored that you're here on our show today. I'm honored that you said yes right away. You never say no to anything. You always say yes when I ask you something. So I'm totally honored to have you. I
try to keep the light on, Lee. I really do. I try to keep the light on, because you know, I can say that the grace of God has put people in my life to help me even when I didn't realize I needed the help. You know what I mean? And they did it in such a loving, non-judgmental way that I really want to transfer that type of love and non-judgmental to each and every person. I want to see people. I want to see people, not just, you know, walk by people and pretend that they don't exist, because if I don't see them, I don't see me. And I want to see people. And so for that, I'm keeping that light on, bro.
That's a really good message. I love that. I love that. I never thought of that. Never went through my mind. I'm always on, but I never thought of that. But there's another topic I wanted to touch on, but we've already been here long enough for this week, so I'm gonna have to bring that topic up next week. It's kind of like a personal, because I'm just gonna throw it out there real quick. So it's kind of like, you know, us people in recovery, we have to accept the fact that we're also human beings, right? And we're surrounded by people that do have the disease. Right. And at times it can be hard for us, right? But we have to, the same message that we're giving the community, we got to give ourselves. Right. So that'll be a whole nother show because it's really deep, and it's something I think about all the time. You know, I was just talking about acceptance, and acceptance is when you accept, you have to accept everything. Right. You not just pick and choose what you want to accept, but remember that you're also human, and that you have to deal with everything. So I just leave that.
No, I gotta wait. Stay with
No,
us.
I'm not done yet. I got announcements.
There's I want to say just the acceptance part, right? I am trying to live a fully transparent life, and just because of the conversations that I've had with my friend and mentor throughout the last few days, as well as everything that I was blessed enough to hear Yvonne share with us, the work will never be done, right? I want to sit here and say that I've also have been, kind of struggling a little bit mentally lately with trying to do everything but not doing it the right way. And I don't want to get lost in the conversation, but you always have to be able to self-evaluate, right? Mm-hmm. But do it the right way as well. Because once you realize that, I'm speaking to me, what I realized this morning from the mission, and as far as the compassion part of it, due to the fact of just being a little bit too hard on myself and trying to be able to save the world, so to speak. But at the same time, I am so grateful to have been able to have, received the message from you this morning, because the work is never done, and at the end of the day, we can never get too big for our britches, so to speak, and we can't think that we're above the process, is more or less what I want to get to.
So then let me just tie this bow up by saying this before we get into next week's conversation, which I think would be very inviting. We are spiritual beings experiencing a human existence.
Yes.
We are spiritual beings experiencing a human existence. And as spiritual beings, we need to let our light shine. We're not going to always do things the right way, the perfect way. But the humanity in us will show forth, and we'll know when we've misstepped and that we don't do that again and we go another path. Mm-hmm. So the message here today is that in recovery, we're gentle with ourselves and we allow that light to shine anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You're making me cry.
That's deep. That's deep.
Oh my God.
Well, I hope you guys all enjoyed the show again this week. Again, huge thank you to Miss Yvonne.
Yes.
She's got some information for you here, but I got two announcements. Our next event here at the Berks Rise Center is December 11th, which is a football recovery party. There'll be lots of food, lots of people in recovery. A game, a really good game.
Go Birds.
New York Giants against the Eagles. I hope the Eagles lose. I might get a lot of comments on that one. But then,
gee, man!
Yeah, that's right. So December 17th, we also have movie night. So the football one is from 1 to 4:30, and the movie night is from
2 to 5.
2 to 5, and the movie will be Ben is Back, right?
If you haven't seen it, it's worth a scene. It's about family, about family going through the disease of addiction with their young son, and how mom really is trying to help her son in the best way that she knows how. But we invite you all to come out. That will be the 17th of December from 2 to 5. Again, there will be light refreshments. Trying to get somebody to cater that, get some good Spanish food going on here. Right, so good. Please come down and join us. It's all free.
Okay. And I believe that my next Recovery Speaker Series is on December 14th, which is a Wednesday if I'm correct. And her name is Carla. I don't remember the last name, but she will be from Harm Reduction. Yes. So please, if you're in Berks County, come on out, check it out. She's going to bring forth a good message. And again, Yvonne has some information for the local people here in Berks County where you can get help. And if you are not from Berks County, like we said earlier, just give us a shot. Yeah, just give us a shout out. Call me, text me, message me. Yvonne, she'll give out her information as well, and we'll get you the help that you need. Yeah, please. I'm here at the Rise Center. I'm here 8 to 3:30 Monday through Friday. You can stop in, say that you saw us on Lee's Transformations podcast, right? But give me a call, 610-750-7550. If you have any questions, if you're looking for a meeting, if you're looking to find out more about Dharma Recovery, Smart Recovery, Celebrate Recovery, and then there's also Common Ground, which is also in Why Missing, and they have Wednesday evening
events as well. Give me a call. We have a lot of information that we can share with you. We want to help. We want to raise your spirit of hope, and we want to begin healing in Berks County. So please give me a call.
I now have an email. My contact information is phone number 484-926-8358. I also have a new email. It's transformationsjosh23@gmail.com. If you want to reach out, I can also direct you to anywhere that you need to be. So please, if you need the help, reach out.
And as you all know, my name is Lee Cruz. My phone number is 484-772-7079, and my email is transformationslc14@gmail.com. And don't forget to go to YouTube, hit that subscribe button
Please.
under Leroy Cruz. See you all next week. Thank you again.
God bless.
God bless you.